All right, so we're continuing on with Shisharda Devi and her divine play, a discussion of God as mother. And we are on page 569. The chapter is called Udbodhan, the mother's house. It's the building that they built for her in Calcutta. And currently there's a press there, and there's a shrine there, and it's a big pilgrimage place that you can go to whenever you go to Billermont. And we're in a section called Holy Mother at the Circus. And we've just finished with Swami Nirlapananda and his description of the mother there. And we're continuing on now with Shalala, later Bharati Prana's reminiscences. It says that Sarala, later Bharati Prana, recalled some details of the trip to the circus. We watched the circus at Maidan till 9 o'clock. The mother was as jubilant as a girl as she watched the various performances. It was quite a late night, so a horse carriage was not available. Lalit Babu brought a taxi, but the mother refused to ride. Once, when she had ridden in a taxi, a dog was run over. From then on, she stopped riding in taxis. Lalit Babu begged her, saying, "Mother, I'm not finding any horse carriages here. Please get in the taxi, and the driver will drive very slowly." But the mother said, "No, try again. You'll find a carriage." Lalit Babu went quite a distance and fortunately got a phaeton. When we returned later to Odboran House in that carriage. So you see that. Just that sensitivity there of the Divine Mother, that cars were a fairly new thing, and it killed a dog, and that just upset her to the point that she takes a vow never to get in a taxi again. That's quite amazing. It's like Swami Prabhupada. He used to check his own email, and then he got kind of a questionable ad one time that shocked him, and he never touched the computer again after that. Never touched it again. I love that. Just zero tolerance, you know. No compromise for your spiritual life. Hold yourself to the grinder. Oh, goodness. That hurts even to say. Lalit, a heroic devotee. Swami Nirlapananda told a wonderful story of Holy Mother's love for her devotee Lalit. Previously, Lalit used to drink and lead a wanton life, but by the grace of the Mother, his life has changed. He and his wife Dasi had lost several children and were nearly mad with grief. After taking refuge in the Mother, Lalit built a charitable dispensary at Jairambati. He made every effort to make the mother's life comfortable, both in Jairambati and in Calcutta. One day he said proudly to Nirlapananda, "Long before the Udbodhan house was built, the mother came to the house I rented in Shankaratola. I had an oil painting made of the Holy Mother, and I asked her to worship her own picture in my shrine with flowers and sandal paste. She did, and then she initiated me." There's a footnote about that here. It says in 1923, when the Mother's temple was built in Jairambati, Swami Sharadananda installed this painting of the Mother on the altar. During the Mother's centenary in 1953 to 54, this picture was replaced with a marble image, and the picture was removed to the shrine bedroom of Jairambati. So it's always a very interesting thing, you know, when because Holy Mother worshipped a picture of Ramakrishna while he was still alive, and she worshipped her own picture, and Ramakrishna even worshipped his picture. And so you see that detachment that happens, you know, that at that level of awareness, they know themselves to be spirit, and their attachment to a particular body is quite thin at that point. And so they wouldn't see themselves as recognizing the separate self that the body represents, but they would be looking through that, you know, to that divine image, looking through it. I don't know, fascinating idea. Looking through it at their own divine self, but a self with no separation, a self with no boundary. One day, Lalit invited Radu's husband, Manmata, and Kartik, who was then a college student, for lunch. Lalit's wife was extremely shy and avoided men she did not know. When the two young men knocked at the door, she did not open it. Manmata was headstrong, and he felt humiliated because Lalit would not receive him. He returned to Udbodhan house with Kartik. When Lalit returned home, his wife told him what had happened, and he immediately rushed to Udbodhan house and complained to the mother. Mother, you should scold these two young boys. I just went to buy some sweets from the market. You know your daughter-in-law's bashful nature. They did not even wait a little, though I returned soon. Lalit felt terrible, thinking that he had humiliated his guru's relative. He burst into tears. The mother consoled him, saying, My son, I shall send them to your house right now, and they will eat there. Don't worry. You go home and make things ready. What trouble inviting these boys? The mother did not say anything to Manmata but privately called Kartik to the northern balcony and scolded him, saying, You're a college student, and you have this kind of intelligence. Why did you not wait until Lalit's return? It is Sunday, and there was no hurry. Manmata is headstrong and foolish. I can't say anything to him. She then recalled Sharat Maharaj and said, My son, you take these two boys and go to Lalit's home and have lunch there. Please calm down, Lalit. Sharat Maharaj obeyed the mother's order. Overwhelmed with joy, Lalit remarked, Am I an ordinary devotee? Look, the mother is holding my hand. Lalit had a large mustache like a German emperor, Kaiser Wilhelm II. So Swami Brahmananda used to call him Kaiser, and the monks and devotees called him Kaiser Chatterjee. Yeah, these social customs are very strong in India. You know, for a single woman or for a woman who's alone in a home, I wouldn't think it would be too unusual for them not to open the door for a man if no one is at home. You run into that quite a bit. I mean, you know, in the West, we're very casual about all of those things, and we're very defensive about that casualness too. I know that I have been through most of my life, but as I've been around these practices and these traditions for a good couple of decades, I've really begun to respect that high bar, that caution that people pay to their own inner purity, inner peace. You know, that there really is something to having that kind of respect for yourself and for others, to not even come close to compromises, not in any kind of judgment or self-righteous way, but in just the real interest of keeping the mind in its bliss, keeping the mind in its peace, you know, keeping that boundary between self and body mind well established, and to not be casual with it until you're very, very aware of the distinction, of the separation, so that confusion doesn't come quite as easily.
I mean, I'm lost. Was it a modesty thing, women, men?
Yes.
What was the issue?
Yeah, no, this was a modesty thing unique to Lalit, because she makes a point of saying that Lalit was very shy and would be in the company of men if her husband wasn't there. And so these two young boys, college students, come. They've been invited to lunch, and Lalit runs out to get some snacks or some sweets. So he's not at home; just his wife is at home. And so these young men come and knock on the door, and Lalit's wife won't answer because she can't. She doesn't want to be there alone with two men in the house, and so she doesn't answer the door. And apparently, the two boys didn't wait very long. It says that one of them threw a little bit of a fit. He was, his ego was hurt a little bit that he was kept waiting at the door, and so they kind of stomped off in a huff, immediately. And so that's why mother scolds him. Says, "You're in college and you're only this intelligent. Why didn't you just wait at the door? You knew that Lalit felt that Lalit's wife was like that, and you should have just waited for her husband. He was there in moments after you left." So, but it's that kind of commitment to our own, a standard of keeping ourselves I don't like using the word pure because I don't, that's not really the word, but unconfused. Let's use the word unconfused.
Well, that's, it's easier to break a boundary. It's easier to break a rule. So if you have rules protecting the rules,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that this would be described as rules protecting the rules. It's just kind of circumstances, being extremely careful in circumstances not to violate what you think is a safe boundary for yourself. Like Swami Prabhupada refusing to get into a car if a woman was in the car, or things like that. It's like these practices. We a lot of times here in the West we have a lot of trouble with them because we always see them as judgment, but they're not practiced out of judgment. They're practiced out of self-protection. It has nothing to do about the woman in the car and her value or lack of value or anything of that sort. It's the person protecting the condition of their own mind, knowing their own tendencies, their own weaknesses, and being fastidious in guarding them, because it's the most important thing in their life. And that's the big distinction, that these things are, despite despite our painful hypocrisy around it, these things are the most important thing in our life, and nothing else is as important, And so to be that serious about protecting yourself, again, guarding yourself, guarding your mind against, greed, against lust, against anger, against jealousy, against all those things, is a very important practice. And I used to kind of poo-poo these things a little bit, but I have to say that as I grow more and more, I'm understanding that we do pay a price for our casual attitudes toward our spiritual, you know, purity, as it were. Again, because that whole discussion has been so muddled up by the way we've talked about it over the years in Western culture. Um, like even my own mother, couldn't separate my joining the monastery. Because for the first 12 years, I wasn't allowed to go home. And she simply could not take that personally. She continually always assumed that it was some kind of judgment on her value or on her purity. And, it had nothing to do with that at all. It was absolutely about breaking my own attachments and breaking out of a situation where I was strongly defined as someone's son. And as a monk, I'm desperately trying to break free of any relation that holds me as a particular, a body or a mind, let alone a relationship or a relative of some kind. And, trying to develop that sort of equanimity in ourselves. And so these practices that we take on, we should be very careful and take them quite seriously and not place ourselves in situations, that are dangerous to our own self, to our own clarity, to our own ability to love equanimously, which is what all of those things destroy. Lust and greed and those things prevent us from being able to love equanimously. They place within us a need to judge people according to different standards, and meter out our love and our approval to people in little bits and pieces based on those arbitrary standards that we adopt. And so here you see just Lalit's wife being acting on that, and causing some inconvenience and a little bit of struggle here. But it's a beautiful thing in the end, I think. You don't have to be extreme, but certainly be conscious and be aware and protect yourself spiritually. The story of Swami Purnananda. Swami Purnananda went to medical school, but he later took initiation from Swami Brahmananda and became a monk. He lived in Udbodhan when the mother was there. To control his restless mind and to improve his patience, Brahmananda told Purnananda, "You must repeat your mantra 10,000 times every evening. Count them. If you make a mistake in counting, start over. Otherwise, an ogress will swallow the results of your japa. According to his guru's instruction, Purnananda steadily began to repeat the mantra with deep concentration. Some days when he lost count, he had to start again. When the supper bell was rung during his japa, he did not go to the dining room with the other monks. This created a problem for the household because someone needed to wait with his food until late at night. One day the mother asked him, "My son, why are you so late for supper?" Touched by the mother's affectionate words, Purnananda burst into tears. He told her what Swami Brahmananda had said to him. When she heard this, she laughed loudly and said, "Rakal said that an ogress would swallow the results of your japa? Look, my son, you're young and your mind is restless, so Rakal gave you the instruction to make your mind calm and one-pointed. I assure you that you will not have to be afraid of finishing your japam. When the bell is rung, please come and eat your supper. Later, you can complete your japa at your convenience." Thus, the mother's assurance freed him from anxiety, and from then on, Purnananda ate supper regularly with the monks. There's you some guilelessness right there. Just so trusting of his teacher. His teacher told him an ogre was going to eat his japam if he didn't finish it or if he lost count. And so he firmly believed it and wouldn't dare to get up until he had completed his 10,000 repetitions. My gosh, even if your mantra is only one syllable long, 10,000 repetitions, that's quite something. I know of another monk who does that, though. 10,000 repetitions a day. I love that kind of commitment. I'm in awe of it, actually. Nafar Chandra Kaul. Late one evening in November 1918, Nafar Chandra Kaul, a wealthy man from Kolpara, came to Udbodhan House and met Swami Sharadananda on an urgent matter. He desperately wanted to see the mother. The Swami called Brahmachari Bharada, who was then setting the mother's mosquito curtain. When Bharada came downstairs, Sharadananda asked him to inform the mother that Nafar Chandra Kaul urgently wanted to see her. When Holy Mother got the news, she told Bharada to ask Nafar to see her upstairs. Nafar went to the mother, prostrated before her, and said with tearful eyes, "Mother, I am wretched. I came to see you because I am in great danger. Recently, 4 of my grandchildren died of influenza, and a couple of other granddaughters and a grandson are now suffering. Mother, you must bless me so that my lineage will not die off. Please tell me whether my grandson will live." The mother consoled him, saying, "What are you so afraid of? You are fortunate, a wealthy man." But Nafar held both of her feet and said piteously, "Mother, may I not lose my grandson in my old age. This is my prayer." The mother said gravely, "Don't be anxious, please. Get up. Well, I shall pray to the Master for you." "Mother, I have come to you for help," insisted Nafar. She then reassured him, saying, "Don't be afraid. You will not have that misfortune." With the mother's blessings, Nafar went to Sharadananda downstairs. The mother asked Brahmachari Bharada to give Nafar a couple of sweets as prasad. Afterwards, she said to Bharada, "This old man possesses a lot of money, but still in his old age he is afraid that his dynasty will come to an end. Just see, my son, there is no peace in this world. His eldest daughter-in-law is the daughter of Shambhu Roy of Jibta village. Perhaps she sent this old man to me." The mother's blessing answered his prayer. Yeah, you see how mother's always discerning, even there. Watching this man, and not having any judgment toward him, but saying, "See, look at how this world is. If it's not one thing causing you suffering, causing you, insecurity or fear, it's something else. You may be rich and get that all together, but now you've got your family dying off, and then you get all that together, and then you have to worry about this, that, and the other." That's the problem with identifying, well, that gets rather high up in Vedanta. All of a sudden, it's a big leap. But it is important for us to always be discerning. Of course, one of the ones I talk about a lot is I was looking at these magazines like in the racks at the grocery store, like Star magazine, where they have all these crazy pictures of all these rich and famous folks. And quite often it's they're not flattering pictures. You can see all of the uh, anyway, all of the plastic surgeries and whatnot that they're going through to maintain this glamour that they've built their lives on. And you just look at those things and you realize what it is, to be in that situation. This world, if you live in this world and are looking for satisfaction in this world, you will always be insecure and hungry. Always. That's the nature of it. You eat one meal, you're going to get hungry for the next one. Eat your favorite food, you're going to want it more often. And then it's going to change. And then you're not going to enjoy it anymore. And now you have to find what's the next thing that your body's going to enjoy. Right. And so it's a constantly changing, moving target. So when we say that this world is a constant flow of unrepeating change, understand what that means. That means you cannot find security in it. As soon as you build one house, it's going to come down and you're going to need another one. That's the nature of it. As soon as you get something secure, something else will break loose. My friend Philip, he bought a house. He rented all his life, and then he bought a house and he thought it would be so much better. And he owned that house for a couple of years, and then he sold it and went back to renting. And I said, why'd you do that? Most people don't do that. Once they buy a house, they're happy about that. He says, no. He says, gosh, I can't believe it. He says, I would just finish replacing the water heater and the roof would go out. I'd finish fixing the roof and I'd have a leaky window. As soon as I finished that leaky window, the dish disposal would go out. He was like, it was a constant hassle of keeping everything running and keeping everything repaired. And that's the nature of this world. And so you can learn it from your own life, from your own experience, but also it's very beneficial if you're able to learn it from other people's lives, by observing and getting that message, getting that wisdom, without having to go in and learn it in your own experience. The scriptures say that a person who can learn from the lives of others and from the teachings of the holy men is extremely blessed. He said, poor is that man who has to learn all of these lessons himself, has to go through all of these circumstances. Doesn't have the faith to learn them from others, learn them from the scriptures. And so, always be learning. That's what Thakur says, so long as I live, so long I learn. And so look around. We live in scripture. We've talked about that before, that this moment is divine. This moment is the scripture. And the scriptures were all born of this moment, this very moment that we're in right now. And so if you clarify the mind a bit, if you get rid of some of the me and mine in there, some of the selfishness and the attachment to body mind, then you can begin to read the scripture of the moment. You can see the teachings that are around you everywhere, always. And life becomes at that point much easier and much more beautiful, and your journey becomes much shorter. If you can do that, if you can learn from others like this. But Mother blesses him, gives him his reassurance. It's interesting that she was hesitant about it, not really hesitant, but saying that, oh, I'll pray to the master. And he says, well, I could have prayed to the master. I could have gone to the master. I came to you for help. And when he said that, she then stopped hemming and hawing. She said, okay, you won't suffer that. Go on. The blessed slum dwellers. Holy Mother's room was the shrine as well as her bedroom and her parlor. She had no privacy, so from time to time she walked on the roof. She seldom visited devotees' homes in Calcutta. When she bathed in the Ganges, she left by the back door, not the main entrance, where Sharadananda and other monks lived and worked in the publication department. By contrast, the elderly Golap Ma, caretaker of Mother, moved around everywhere in the house. Sometimes the mother sat alone on the northern balcony of her room and repeated her mantra in the evening or gave a private interview. In front of Udbodhan House, there was a large slum. The inhabitants came from various parts of India and earned their livelihood by hard manual labor. When Holy Mother was in Calcutta, they could see her from their huts when she went out on the balcony to the north of her room. The slum dwellers loved and respected Holy Mother. Sometimes Holy Mother watched the poverty-stricken people of the slum from her balcony. And one day, a woman from the slum entered the mother's house with her sick child and prayed with tearful eyes for her blessing. The mother looked intently at the child for a while and then reassured the woman, "Don't worry, my child, your son will be all right." She took 2 pomegranates and some grapes, offered them to the master, and then handed them to that woman, saying, "Please feed these fruits to your ailing son." Holy Mother's compassion and her empathy brightened that poor woman's face. She bowed down to the mother and left. Shortly afterward, her son indeed regained his health. One of the men who lived in the slum had a mistress, and they lived together. Once the mistress became seriously ill. Referring to her illness, the mother said, "He nursed her with such great devotion. I have never before seen anything like it. He has shown a real spirit of service. What an intense feeling." That's also something right there. Mothers looking past the fault and looking for the virtue, right? And so this man has this mistress, but who became so ill, but he nursed her so caringly, so nicely. And mothers, she's looking past the impropriety and looking to the virtue. That's a great example for us. That everybody, we should always be looking for the strengths in each other. And sometimes we might have to look past quite a few obvious weaknesses in another person or another shortcoming. So don't hold a fault that a person has to be bigger than everything else about that person. Always be looking for the good in there, no matter what it is. Be gracious about holding things against others. You know, give others as much grace as you give yourself, and give yourself at least as much grace as God does. you know One afternoon, the mother was seated on her balcony repeating her mantra when she heard a man verbally abusing his wife and slapping and kicking her. The woman had a child in her lap. She fell down with the child from the veranda to the courtyard. Still, the man went on kicking her. The mother could not bear it. Although she was extremely shy and usually spoke softly, she now stood at the balcony's iron railing and cried aloud in a tone of sharp reprimand. "You rogue, are you going to kill the girl outright? I'm afraid she's already dead." Hardly had the man looked at the mother when he became as quiet as a snake before its charmer. He released the woman, bent his head down, and went back into their room. The mother's compassion made the woman burst into loud sobs. Filled with gratitude, she looked at the mother with tearful eyes. The mother learned that the woman had not cooked a meal on time. Soon after, the man went out to console his wife. When the mother saw this, she returned to her room. Yeah, that boldness, speaking up at a right time like that. Shalala Bala Sarkar wrote, "The mother enjoyed the sun while sitting on her northern balcony. She loved to watch the young children playing. One day a man began to beat his wife with a stick, and she began crying loudly. Seeing it from the balcony, the mother got up with her veil dropped from her head. The sweet-tongued mother shouted to that man, 'You rogue, give up your stick, beware, don't hit her any more.' Getting that severe scolding, the man was embarrassed. He dropped the stick, saluted the mother with folded hands, and ran away. Previously, he used to beat his wife from time to time, but from that day forward, he never hit her again." Wow. There must have been some conviction in her voice. That both of these men, because usually they're in a rage in that state, they're not thinking clearly. And in both states, the men stopped immediately. And in this case, he never hit his wife again. That's some power. That's Shakti. Although the mother did not leave her house often, she saw from her upper balcony what was going on in the world. There were some houses of ill fame on the slum below. Sara Jubala once recalled. The mother was on the balcony and laughing. She called me, "Oh, daughter, come here, be quick." As soon as I went to her, she said, "Look, look, that man is peeping through the windows of the prostitute's house. He runs from window to window, but he can't get in. Look, what an infatuation. What animal instinct. That poor fellow hears the music inside the room, but he can't get inside. Oh, he's dying of anxiety and restlessness." The way the mother described that man's condition, I could not check my laughter. Both of us laughed and then went back to her room. I said, "Mother, it would be wonderful if a person developed that kind of eagerness and restlessness for God." Indeed. Of course. Yeah. It's not funny to be on the other side, though, is it? It's quite for a person living according to the needs of their body and mind, it's an endless, oh my God, an endless demand of things, endless demand, exhausting life, because there's ultimately no fulfillment for it. The more you enjoy something, the more of it you want. And the more of it that you indulge in, the more particular your tastes become. And so it becomes more and more difficult to fulfill your desires. And pretty soon you're kind of worn to the point where you're not even really enjoying it anymore. But now it's a matter of deep habit, and you just can't stop. You become your own victim. So these teachings are always a great grace for us. They're showing us things that they're not showing us right and wrong for the sake of right and wrong. That's what's so ridiculous, in our perceptions of it. They're not being, self-righteous in that sense. These teachings really come to us out of a compassion, out of a grace, so that we don't get caught in the world, because the world is a cruel master. It's a cruel master. And so these teachings and our practices and the knowledge of these things is a great grace. It's a great freedom for us. And we really should not ever take them for granted. We shouldn't forget them. The next day, Sara Jubala came and found the mother on her balcony, repeating her mantra. Holy Mother said to her, "You've come, please sit down." She then finished her japa and touched the rosary to her forehead. She pointed to the slum and said, "Look, these people work very hard the entire day for their livelihood, and now they are relaxing with their families. Blessed are the poor in spirit." Sara Jubalak commented, "This reminded me of when I read the Bible, Jesus' own words, 'Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.' Today I heard the same words from the mouth of the Divine Mother." Being Mahamaya herself, Holy Mother watched the play of Maya from her balcony. You see, that's spiritual awareness there. When you watch the world knowing that it's the play of the divine, when you watch the dream knowing that you're dreaming, right? And that's the space we're always guarding. We're trying to maintain that space for ourselves so that we don't get carried away by the dream. We don't get caught up in its narrative. And so all of these rules of purity and self-discipline and self-control, they're all about training us to find that space inside where we're free, where we're not being led by our senses, not being led by our fantasies and dreams, but that we're led by an inner character, a character that's disciplined and full of love and full of grace and full of caring, and to really live a life that is protective of that because of what it affords to everybody else. It allows you then to be the hand of the beloved in loving this world, in nurturing this world, in caring for this world. Motivated prayers. Human beings have desires, and their happiness and their misery depend on whether these desires are fulfilled. When human efforts fail, they seek divine help. Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar, one of Ramakrishna's physicians, was an MD, but he practiced homeopathic medicine. Similarly, the mother's main physician was Dr. Gyanendra Nath Kanjilal, an MD who practiced homeopathic medicine also. He and his first wife, Hema Prabha, and second wife, Surupushundari, were disciples of Mother. Whenever the mother was sick in Jairambati or Kolpara, he always went there and treated her. When the villagers learned that Dr. Kanjilal was a famous doctor from Calcutta, from the Calcutta Medical College, they also came to get treatment from him. The mother commented, "My qualified and talented son has come so that the people can get help from him." This made Mother happy. In gratitude, the villagers would bring various presents and food to Dr. Kanjilal. Before he left Jairambati, the doctor would give the villagers his sample patent medicines to use when needed. The mother was compassionate toward the poor people and could not bear to see them suffer from want of food or clothing. Sometimes she blessed devotees by saying, "You will never suffer from the lack of food." She would also say, "The master told me that those who would chant his name would never suffer from lack of food." Holy Mother was very fond of Dr. Kanjilal. One day, his second wife, Surupusundari, bowed down to her and said, "Mother, please bless us so that your son may have a good income." The mother looked at her and said, "My daughter, how can I bless you that way? That would mean that people would have to get diseases and suffer so that your husband could make more money. My child, I can't bestow that kind of blessing. Let all beings be healthy. Let all beings be happy." So that discerning eye. Sara Jubala Sen recalled, "One evening, two pretty young women had been taking Holy Mother into their confidence on the northern porch of her room, when I suddenly presented myself there, not finding her anywhere else. I heard the Mother saying to them, 'Lay the burden of your mind before the Master. Tell him your sorrows with your tears. You will find that he will fill your arms with the desired object.' I could at once understand that the women were praying to be blessed with children. They were abashed at the sight of me. My state of mind was even worse. A few months later, I again met those women in the house of the Mother. I was glad to find that their cherished desire was going to be fulfilled soon." On the evening of the 6th of August, 1918, some women came to pay their respects. They bowed down to the Master in the shrine, and then Nalini introduced them to Holy Mother. One of them had come to Calcutta for medical treatment. The doctor had diagnosed a tumor in her abdomen, and she was having an operation. She was very anxious. Holy Mother did not allow the women to touch her, though they begged her to let them take the dust of her feet. They pointed to the sick woman and said, "Please bless her so that she may be cured. May she be able to pay her respects to you again." The Mother answered them by saying, "Bow down before the Master and pray to him sincerely. He is everything." After they had left, Holy Mother told her attendants, "Please sweep the room and sprinkle it with Ganges water. It is now time for the Lord's food offering." After saying that, she lay down on the bed and said to a devotee, "My child, please fan me a little. My whole body is burning." My salutations to your Calcutta. People come here and lay before me a catalogue of their sorrows. There are many who have committed sinful acts. There are still others who have had 25 children. They weep because 10 of them are dead. Are they human beings? No. They're veritable beasts. No self-control, no restraint. People have been streaming here today since 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I cannot bear their misery anymore. It was the evening of the 22nd of August, 1918. Exhausted, Holy Mother was lying on her bed. A brahmachari came upstairs and told her that a certain woman devotee wanted to see her. Reluctantly, she sat up. Soon, a well-dressed woman entered the room and bowed to her, touching her feet. She said that her husband had been suffering from diabetes and his feet were swollen. The doctor said it was a dangerous disease. She prayed to the Mother for her husband's recovery. Holy Mother replied, "I do not know anything, my child. The Master is everything. If he wills, your husband will be all right. I shall pray to the master for him. Reassured, the mother said, I am now very happy, mother. Sri Ramakrishna can never disregard your prayer. No sooner had she left the room than Holy Mother lay down again and said to a devotee, let anybody come, whoever that person may be. I'm not going to get up again. What trouble it is, my child, to get up again and again with my aching feet. Besides, I feel a burning sensation in my whole back caused by a rash. Please rub it with this medicated oil. The mother continued, her husband is dangerously ill. She came here to pray to God for his recovery. Instead of being prayerful and penitent, she has covered herself with perfumes. Does this become one who comes to a shrine? Ah, such is the nature of modern people. Yes. There's a lot of things that run through my mind with that, just that little part of the story there. I'll take a moment to kind of ponder like an old man, but I remember when I was a kid, that we would never leave the house without being dressed up, right? Even if we went out shopping to the mall, I had to go and put on some nice clothes to go shopping, with the family. If we ever went out to dinner, we always put on our little sport jackets and our little collars with a tie, and it was that way. You always dressed up, you dressed different ways for different things. You would never would go to church casually or, I grew up in Germany, in the town that I grew up in. On Saturday night, it was the custom. Everybody would be out scrubbing their sidewalks, literally scrubbing their sidewalks with scrub brushes. And when we first moved there, my family asked why do people scrub their sidewalks like that on Sunday mornings? And the people were quite surprised that she didn't know. She said, well, people are wearing their best clothes to go to church. We don't want them to get their shoes dirty on the way, And so the whole town had this tradition of scrubbing the sidewalks so that people wearing their Sunday best wouldn't get their shoes dirty. And, in our casualness in this culture now, we don't show respect. We're not even aware that that's a way of showing respect. That if you're going to meet somebody, to dress up and to present yourself well to them is to respect them. It's to give a message of effort and concern for them. It's making an effort to show your respect to others. When I was young, sitting in class, you would never slouch in your chairs because it was disrespectful for the teacher. You would sit there and you would sit there with some discipline, and I was raised with that. When we'd go out to dinner, good Lord forbid that I be restless at the dinner table or make any noise or cause any trouble. I had to sit there while the adults chatted their ears off, sitting there just quiet, waiting for them, waiting to go home, or I would ask to be excused from the table. And I think there's great value in that. I think that not only have we stopped showing respect to others, but we've stopped respecting ourselves also. To make yourself presentable is a form of worship. It's caring. It's being concerned about how you present yourself, the effort that you put into your development, the effort that you put into your discipline and your presentation as a person, not in a vain sense, but in a sense of having enough respect for yourself that you just don't burp yourself onto the sidewalk. That you go out with a thought of who you are and what you are, and you present yourself to the world with a sense of respect for them and a sense of dignity for yourself. And I don't think that's a big deal, but I do think it's something we could probably gather some strength from, is to think about those things a little bit more. To, if you're going outside, dress yourself up a little bit. If you're going to temple, sit there and really consider. I mean, as a monk, I live in a world of extremes, but I've seen people wear things to temples that I wouldn't wear to a bathhouse. I mean, I can remember seeing Swami Prabhutananda, and he would, after a lecture, he would make himself available to whoever wanted to talk to him. And I would see these folks come up to him, just, my goodness, the way they were dressed. I felt sorry for him because I knew he wasn't accustomed to that. I knew that that was quite a shock to him. And he would endure it patiently all the time. But, it shouldn't be that way. We should really think about these things. We should really actively look for ways to respect each other, you know, kind of bring that ball back to center a little bit. I think the 60s and 70s, that ball went all the way over to one side and it really hasn't come back yet. So that kind of. All right. So we'll end there for today. If anybody has any questions or ideas or
Well,
concerns.
I have a comment.